Hello and thanks for watching this Cloud9 ERP Solutions video and subscribing to our YouTube channel. In this video, we're going to talk about distribution requirements planning. So if you used Acumatica over the years, you probably used inventory replenishment. And while inventory replenishment might be good for low-cost, high-volume items, DRP is much better for forecasts and planning. But what we're going to review is this distribution requirements planning. You notice we're looking at a stock item profile, and we have the ability to configure this particular item to the DRP method as opposed to the inventory replenishment method. This also brings about a new workspace called inventory planning. And that gives you the ability to set up forecasts. You can forecast for the year. You can do a forecast based on the month. It reviews your history using a much better engine, more reliable and predictable engine. And it also comes with a bunch of different inquiry screens that allow you to track your history versus actual, allow you to track month by month, do comparisons, the kinds of things that you'd need to create separate spreadsheets in order to report on. So let's get started. Once we select DRP, you'll notice the inventory planning window here. And this is a different configuration than you may be used to in replenishment. But you can select the source. We'll select purchasing here. You can pick up a safety stock. So maybe we want a safety stock of 5, and we want the system to pick up a reorder point of maybe around 8. So the safety stock will give us a cushion of 5. And then we also have minimum order quantity and maximum order quantity and lot size. So that gives us the ability to ensure that we're optimizing the amount that we order in the event that our distributor has certain benchmarks, certain efficiency standards for ordering those quantities. So let's leave all this as 0 right now. The item we're working with is a sample computer. Let's go into our inventory planning, and we'll go over to generate our forecast. So the first screen you see is here's the forecast date. We're going to use this forecast date going forward. So we're going to forecast from this date forward. We're going to use a regular type of forecast. If we choose seasonality, we have our seasonality options. Those seasonality options give you the ability to buffer or add a factor on top of your predicted amounts. But we'll leave this at regular. You can select dependent, and what that does is it gives you just a forecast based on history. It does not look at existing orders. We'll leave that alone. You have a growth rate that you can use in order to increase the amount you expect to sell from your history. You can go back and review as many years of history as you'd like. And then you have a factor that you can come in here and maybe take a little bit off of the history that the system is going to go back and evaluate. We'll leave that at 1. You can also calculate by month. And then we have the ability to filter. We want to pick off certain item classes, warehouses, certain customers. So I'm going to pick our sample computer here. Now, just to go back, if we look at our stock item, I created this stock item. And then I went in and I imported this stock item into a IN type sales order. So I produced history for this particular item. If we take a look at inventory transaction history, we'll look at our side panel, and we go back. I did it for 2024. You can see various different amounts here of purchases by customer, by sample customers. So you can see, for example, 1 month I ordered 5 of them with this sample customer, then a 10, 5, 10, 5, 10. So I used variable amounts and I alternated, and I created invoices history in the system so that we can use that data for the system to create its forecast off of. So if we go back to our generate forecast and we click calculate, you can see the forecast that Acumatica would like to put in the system. Now, it hasn't put it in the system yet. For that, we'll click Process All. But you'll notice you can come in here and make adjustments to what you believe the number should be. So for example, if I select 3, you'll notice that it'll give me some numbers. It says, okay, well, you've changed by 2, you've reduced it by 2, and that's the percentage. So I'll leave it alone, and I'll click Process All. This will generate the actual forecast. Now, if I go over to Inventory Planning, and I select Forecast, I can see all of my forecasts that have been created here. And once again, you can come in here, you can make changes. Notice we calculated it and made forecasts for a month to month. And then from here, you can continue to make changes if you'd like. You can also turn these off. Let's say there's a forecast you don't particularly like. You can deactivate it so that our next step, which I'm going to show you right now, won't take this into consideration. Before I continue, only 15% of you are subscribed. Hit that subscribe button now to get notified about new videos and events. Thank you for your support. We also have a side panel here, and this is new for 2025. If I click on Forecast versus Sales, and I highlight a given row, what this side panel does is it says, okay, well, you have 10 forecasted, but your actual quantity is 5 that you need. So we have a quantity variance of 5, meaning you're using 5 of the 10 that you forecasted, but you still got 5 out there. Additionally, we have this other side panel, Forecast versus Sales Details. And if I highlight again, and maybe I'll move this over a little bit so we can see more of it, you can see the forecasted quantity is 10, the actual demand is 5, and you'll actually see the sales order that's producing that demand. And from here, you can open it up. So these side panels give you a really good insight as to what's going on. Now, if I go back to our inventory planning workspace and I go into regenerate inventory planning, you have a screen here, which is an engine that goes through and it takes all of this into consideration, including existing orders. If you recall, when I generated the forecast, I did not mark it dependent. I could have. And if you mark it dependent, it doesn't consider existing orders. Now, having said that, if I go to sales orders, I have a sales order out here for this sample computer for quantity 5. I'll go back to regenerate inventory planning and I'll click process. Now, depending upon how many items in the system you have, how much transactional history you have, this could take a few minutes. So this is the kind of thing you can schedule and run automatically, maybe daily, maybe run it before the day starts. But based on this, if I now go into inventory planning again, and I look at my inventory planning display, you'll notice a few things here. First off, you can see my sample computer items. Month to month, they're right here. And you can see the different various quantities that the system is forecasting. Notice the type here, that the system is forecasting for me to place purchases on. And here I can select these and click purchase, and it'll automatically create those purchase orders. But you'll also notice that you can do this for transfers. So you may have transfers. The system can create order transfers to different warehouses that you have. So maybe I want to transfer 5 from retail to wholesale based on a preference that I have in this stock item profile. If I go back to stock items and I go to inventory planning, you could again do transfers and select the source warehouse, and the system will know where to take it from and to. Now, as we look at these settings, and we're going to adjust the safety stock in a moment as an example and see the results. Also notice that under warehouses, you have all your different warehouse profiles for this given item. So because we've only worked with the retail warehouse for this item, that's all you see here. But the takeaway here is if I open up and I click on that link to that warehouse, what I get is settings that are related to this particular item and the warehouse. And so if I go to inventory planning, notice that despite what I might have here under inventory planning, I have the ability to override those settings per warehouse. So for example, your safety stock might be something different, of course, or your reorder point might be something different, of course, based on your different warehouses and the locations around the country. But additionally, I also have the ability to say, well, this particular warehouse, when we run out of stock, when we need more additional stock, do I want to purchase? Do I want to transfer from another warehouse? And so you have all these different options per warehouse, which is critical because every warehouse has different requirements. And if you're going to source different product from a different warehouse, then one warehouse is going to need to be able to do the purchase, even if this particular warehouse is doing the transfer. Now, if I go back and I go back to inventory planning, you can also see inventory planning results by item. So if we open it up and we pick the item, what you see here is month to month, we have a requirement plan. That's what happened when we regenerated our inventory planning. So we had a requirement plan of +5. Our projected on-hand quantity was gonna be 5. But then we got a sales order here, which is -5. And so our projected on-hand quantity is 0. And so over here, we have a requirement plan of 5 again. And here's the document that did all that. And then we have this forecast of -5. So our projected is going to be 0 again. This is all based on our forecast. Now, if I take another item, if I create a brand new item and I set some safety stock and reorder points, I'd like to do this with a different item instead. So I'll copy this item and I'll create a brand new one. We'll make it number 2 and I'll paste this. And once again, I'll use the number 2 so we can differentiate. I'll go over to inventory planning and I'll give myself a safety stock of 3 and a reorder point of 5. Now, with this new item, I just created it, I don't have any history, so the forecast isn't going to pick up any history and say, you're going to be selling this in the month of April and the month of May and so on. But I do have a reorder point and a safety stock. So, for example, if I go back to inventory planning and I go into generate forecasts and I pick our item, our new item, number 2, and I click on calculate, you'll notice there is no forecast for this item because there's no history for this item. But that doesn't mean if we go into inventory and we go into regenerate inventory planning and we process, and if we go over to inventory planning and look at our planning results by item, we'll filter by our new item. And so notice what you have here is a requirement plan type, not a forecast, but a requirement plan for the quantity 3. And if we go back to our stock item, it's because we've asked the system to give ourselves a safety stock of 3. Now, we have a reorder point of 5, so we fell below that, we're at 0. But we're asking the system to put together a safety stock of 3. Now, if we change this up a little bit, and we say, well, yes, but we need an order, a minimum order of 10 at a time. We hit save. We'll go back to regenerate inventory planning. I'm going through all these examples so that you get a feel for how this all works instead of troubleshooting on the fly with live inventory. So I'll hit process again. Notice the schedule button here allows me to schedule this as often as I need. This could take a half an hour or 15 minutes or just a few minutes, but it just depends on how much data you have in the system. So you don't want to schedule it every minute, but maybe you want to schedule it once a day. We'll go back to inventory planning results by item, and we'll refresh. And notice the system is now asking us to order 10 of them. And you can see that here also by the inventory planning display. This is nice because it shows by item. This one shows all of the items where there's quantity that are needed. And in this case, there's a purchase source. The system is telling us 10 to purchase. So you can check the box, click the purchase button. Now, if we continue on and we maybe order a few of these. So we'll open up a brand new sales order. We'll add our item. And we'll throw 5 on there on the sales order. We'll go back to regenerate inventory planning. Click process. And so if we go to inventory planning results by item again and refresh, you now see we have quantity 10. Projected on-hand quantity is 10. And we have a sales order that's going to take 5 away. But our projected on-hand quantity is 5. Now, the system is saying, well, that's great and all. You're going to be left with 5. But we don't need any extra in order to take care of that sales order and in order to take care of our safety stock. So if we go back, you'll notice we have the quantity 3 for the safety stock and the 5 for the reorder point. We haven't hit below those thresholds again. So the system's not going to ask us to order more. Having said that, if we go back to the sales order and we copy it, we'll go in, we'll create a brand new one, we'll paste it, and we'll add another maybe 7. Nice odd number. We'll save it. Run our regenerate inventory planning again. Go back to inventory planning results by item, refresh. And so now you see we have a requirements plan of 10, and we have another requirement plan of 10. And that's because we were going to fall below our reorder point, and our minimum order is 10 every time. So now the system is ordering 10 and 10, which will get us to 20. One sales order will take us to 15, and the next sales order will take us to 8. And if you're wondering what the difference is between this viewpoint and the inventory planning display, if I refresh this, you'll see you essentially just get the inventory item and the base quantity. But you'll understand why. So for the first 10, it was because of safety stock. And for the second 10, it's because of a sales order or multiple sales orders. And once again, if you go back to the planning results by item, you can actually see the individual documents that are driving those results. And if you go back here to the inventory planning display, you can also see that in a side panel here. We select here. As we're selecting this item, it won't make a difference which item you select here in this record, because there's 2 records here. This side panel filters by item. Having said that, you will see all the details, just like what we saw in the inventory planning results by item. It's the same screen, just a side panel attached to whatever's here on the left. Now, if we go into planning display, and now we want to place orders for this. So from here, we can look, you can create filters based on the date ranges. We don't want to go too far ahead, but we can select the items that we want to purchase and click purchase here. That'll give us a summary. Notice what it's doing here. It has the sample computer twice, and that's because one of them was a safety stock and the other one was for our forecast. And then you have this other item in here. We'll click create. And now you can go through your purchase order process and get these into stock. So that's DRP. We walked you through a forecast. We generated a forecast based on history. We took into consideration an existing sales order out there for the quantity 5. We also added a safety stock on this item. And then we went through systematically on all these different planning displays, and we purchased the item to get it into stock. So thanks so much for watching this video. Hopefully you found it useful. And if you did, please click the like button. And if you have any questions about this or anything else Acumatica, feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks again, and have a great day.